So hey guys, it is September, and as we speak, the Halloween Horror Nights 26 employee preview is happening. So with that happening, I thought it was the perfect time to actually finish the 25 questions that I started for Halloween Horror Nights 25 last year, but never actually finished. So if you didn't happen to see last year's video, I only got through 14 questions of a 25 question tag, and I intended to come back and film more, and I never did. So this is the link to go see that video. Go watch that one first. It's got a bunch of different history of my favorite houses and all that good stuff. Now, these questions, I just threw my phone across the room. Hold that thought. These questions are mostly scare zone questions. There's a few oddballs, but I divided it here because all the previous questions were house questions. So go watch part 1, and this is part 2 almost a year later, if not a year later. And the last thing I'll say before I get into the questions is, if you haven't already found out, or if you're new to my channel, I'm going to Halloween Horror Nights for 5 nights this year. And the first night is going to be this Sunday. Very excited about it. So by the time you see this video, I will only have 2 days before I'm at Halloween Horror Nights myself. Stoked, excited, love it. It's my favorite event of the year. So if you're interested in Halloween Horror Nights, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to have a bunch of different Halloween Horror Nights content coming to you in October. So without further ado, let's get into some questions. Question number 1, what is your favorite scare zone of all time? For me, that's an easy one, because it would be 7 from Halloween Horror Nights 21, which was in 2011. And this scare zone was revolutionary because they'd never done a scare zone that evolved over time. This scare zone, if you came in early in the evening, there was an instrumental version of The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson playing, and the girls that represented the 7 deadly sins were on platforms that had stages that matched their sin. And early in the night, they were in beautiful dresses, had kind of masquerade masks on, and they had minions on the ground who were actually scaring. If you came back later in the night, the actual version of Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People would be playing, and then the girls' costumes had completely changed. So for instance, Lust was charred. She was covered in burns because she'd been burnt, I guess, by the flames of lust. And then their minions were really great. So I remember the green minions had money coming out of their mouths, and it was just a really great scare zone. Really fun to watch the interactions between the girls and their minions. And then also really fun because it just so happens that I knew both of the girls playing Lust. And one of them was a very special case because while I have many friends within the Halloween Horror Nights community, and I've made a lot of friends through just being fans of the event, this particular friend I've known since elementary school. And so to have a friend from completely outside of the horror community decide to audition for Halloween Horror Nights, and then there she was as Lust every night, this girl that I've known since like 4th grade, probably even sooner. It was really fun to watch, and I have some really great clips from that scare zone because she was in it. So that was my favorite scare zone of all time. Question number 2. What was your least favorite scare zone? I think the majority of the Halloween Horror Nights community will agree with me when I say that 2013, when the entire park was a giant Walking Dead scare zone, was the worst. It just was boring. Zombies aren't that fun to watch in scare zones, especially not Walking Dead zombies, because they're very strict on what they're allowed to do. And so they couldn't really be aggressive zombies. There was like one zone where they're allowed to be a little more aggressive, but most they were just kind of like lurching at you slowly, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, okay, bye, you just do you, zombie, I'm gonna be gone. It wasn't effective. Number 3, your scariest scare zone experience. So I'm having to go way back in my history for this one because I am a pro at Halloween Horror Nights. I've been doing this for a long time. This is going to be my 14th year going to Halloween Horror Nights, so I don't really get scared in the scare zones anymore. Every once in a while I'll get a jump scare. Someone will get me every once in a while, but my adrenaline isn't pumping in the scare zones. I'm just there having a good time. I love the character interaction. I thrive on the scare zones, so I don't really get scared these days. But once upon a time, way back in the day, Liz was a Halloween Horror Nights noob, just like everyone was at some point in their lives. And back in 2001, it was my very first Halloween Horror Nights. I was 16 going on 17, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. If you watched part 1 of my video, then you know that my very first Halloween Horror Nights experience was getting thrown to the wolves basically because I was at a convention in Orlando and somehow the fellow high schoolers convinced our chaperones to take us to Halloween Horror Nights. I still don't know how that happened, but it did, and we went to Halloween Horror Nights, and I had kind of heard of the event but really didn't know much about it. So came in with zero knowledge of what was about to happen to me and got thrown literally straight into a pack of chainsaw guys because they were waiting for us outside security. So that was my introduction to Halloween Horror Nights. And I remember going through those first scare zones just being absolutely terrified because I had no idea what they were allowed to do, what could be facing us in these scare zones. It was a lot to take in at once. And so the ultimate scare zone for me, this scariest experience I've ever had, was in former Amity, and there were clowns. And I'm not even a person that's typically afraid of clowns, but when I was 16 and already have the adrenaline flowing from the previous few scare zones I've been through, and we walked through a huge patch of fog into Amity, and this is my first time in Universal since I was in middle school, so I don't really know where I'm at, but we walk into Amity and there is a clown just waiting there in the fog, and just standing there like on a pole, like waiting for us to come towards him, and we lost it. We turned around, we ran back out of the fog. We eventually gained our courage and went back in and went through the scare zone, but to me, I just had the picture of like it just standing in the fog waiting to get me. It was midway of the bazaar. That's what it was. It was midway of the bazaar. I will say that scare zone also taught me very important tactics that I still use today, and that is the more you make eye contact and the more confident you seem, the less likely you're going to get picked on. And I learned that very first Halloween Horror Nights. I learned that if I said Happy Halloween and seemed very happy with the clowns, they just kind of shrugged and went about their business. But my friend, who was terrified and attached to my arm, was getting all the scares. I'm a smart one. I learned fast. So that scare zone lives on in my memory forever. Number 4, what was the most scenic scare zone? This one is tough, especially in recent years, because in 2012, Universal created the Superstar Parade, and that totally changed the game for Halloween Horror Nights because it means that they cannot have permanent sets out during the months of September, October. Back in the day, they did full-on scare zones, and the first one that came to mind for me was I think it was Harvest of Souls. I think that was the name of it. And this was in 2004, and this was the 2-park event. So it was at Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios. It's the only year they've done that. In order to get back and forth between the 2 parks, you kind of had to go off in what's, I think now, parking lots, but back then it was just an empty lot in between the 2 parks. So they actually planted a full-on cornfield in that lot, and they had pumpkins and pumpkin-headed guys, and they were hiding in the cornfields, and it was awesome. I just thought it was so cool that they actually planted a cornfield for this. Now, if you're from Florida, then you probably also realize that 2004 was one of the years we had a lot of hurricanes. And so I do think that the cornfield got damaged, and I think they had to salvage what they had left. But I remember going and still thinking it was really impressive, so that was pretty amazing. My mind also goes to 2010 with the warehouse scare zone that was in Hollywood that had all sorts of anniversary items because it was the 20th anniversary. So it was just full of items that had been used at previous Halloween Horror Nights, and during the daytime you could walk through and just see all these little memorabilia items that reminded you of the different scare zones and houses that had been featured at Horror Nights in the past. And then they had the big like double X sign that Fear stood it during the day, and they had little mini sets for the former icons like Jack and the Caretaker and Storyteller. Chance was out there, and it was just a really, really fun zone to go through during the day. And then at night, all those props made the perfect area for people to hide. So, number 5, what was your favorite roaming horde? So 2012 introduced the roaming hordes. If we're ignoring the fact that there's always been kind of like chainsaw gangs and there's been sort of some other unofficial roaming hordes in the years. But 2012, the entire Scarzone experience consisted of roaming hordes because of the Superstar Parade, and they hadn't figured out a way to build sets yet. So their idea was just to put out, whether 5 or 6 different hordes, and they kind of roamed through the park at different times. I don't think it was as effective as they wanted it to be, but it was what it was. So of those, I'd say my 2 favorites, because I can't pick just one, were the Beasts and the Traditionals. The Traditionals were so fun to watch. They were so fun to interact with. They started a tradition where, because they kept asking to trick or treat, if you weren't familiar, they were dressed as children with trick or treat bags, but they were all a little twisted, and they would ask you for candy. So a lot of people started bringing candy for them, and those interactions were fantastic. And then I also loved the Beasts, because the Beast casts were just fun to watch. They were really intense, very into scaring people, and oh man, the amount of times I saw women running out of that scare zone whenever the Beasts were out were great, because all of them were like at least 6 feet tall. Number 6, who is your favorite scare actor in a house? Oh man. So I have to do some disclaimers here. As you guys know, if you've been watching my videos for a while, I have a lot of friends in the Halloween Horror Nights community, and I've made a lot of friends who work this event, and so I can't play favorites, okay? So I'm gonna put it this way. If I knew the person prior to going to see them scare in a house, I'm disqualifying them, because that's just playing favorites. 2, again, 2 is the magic number. Number 1 is Halloween Horror Nights' boyfriend, HHN boyfriend as I call him. I never knew who he was until we met in the Alice Cooper house, and he just started interacting with me one time, and he came up and said HHN rumors in my ear because I was wearing that shirt, and I thought he said it in my name. And so I had a friend like Cass, I'm like, hey, who's this guy? Because I think he said my name. Turns out it was a whole misunderstanding. He had just said what was on my shirt, and through this confusion we started interacting every single time I came through that house, and it was hysterical. It was so funny. To the end, or the last night of the event, we actually broke up. That's why I became Horror Nights' boyfriend, because he like came over to give me a hand heart, and we did hand hearts, and then we like split them. We broke up, and then he gave me a hug in the haunted house. And then we finally met sans mask that night. We'd never had met before. So that was a blast. Again, a friend that I made in the house just because he had a sense of humor, and I was coming through that house a lot visiting my friend. And it was my first year ever getting to go through the houses as many times as I did. So it was my first opportunity to make a connection like that, and now I go visit him every year. As far as a favorite scare for a stranger that I've never known who he was, he's a mystery still to this day, I have to give it to the hatchet guy from Winter's Night in 2011. And I feel like a lot of you have already heard this story because it's one of my favorites to tell. But in 2011, Winter's Night was a house that was kind of a ghost house and set in a cemetery. And this guy, I think I saw him early on in my 2011 experience and died laughing. And so then I made sure that all my friends came through with me and witnessed the hatchet guy. So basically, he was in an open room. There was a girl that was serving as a distraction, and his boo hole was really well hidden, and he popped out from the boo hole, and he had a hatchet. Now, the other cast, the guy actually came at you with the hatchet, but no, not hatchet guy. Hatchet guy popped out and just went. He probably wasn't smiling. That's probably my own addition. But he would pop out and just freeze. Freeze in that position, as if we were T-Rexes who might not be able to see that he's there once he freezes. And this was not an isolated incident. This happened every single time I came through his cast, to the point where we continued to go through and visit him and then cheer for him every time he popped out, and then we got very sad if he didn't pop out. But when he did, oh God, I love him. Bless that man. Bless Hatchet Man. You live in infamy. I have no idea who you are, but we will never forget you. Number 7, who is your favorite scare actor from a scare zone? I feel like I have so many new additions from Halloween Horror Nights 25 because that psychotherapy scare zone lent itself to interactions so well. We had the waving hand guy with Mike last year, who's definitely Mike's favorite, just doing this forever. There was the guy that had the pole and like would dance with it. So quite a few psychotherapy characters that loved. I have to give this to, again, two people who are now my friends based on interactions from former scare zones. So first I have to do the story of Marzipan, and he and I met for the first time that I can recall on one of the YouTube nights. So if you've been with me for a while, you know that 2012, 2013, the Tim Tracker and Jen Tracker and some of the other like local YouTubers, we were all invited. I think Tim used to organize it. We were invited to go do a night at Halloween Horror Nights, and we were allowed to film through all the houses, which normally you're not allowed to film in the houses, which is why most of my videos you never see the inside. So we were filming and we were getting ready to go to another house, and we had stopped the whole group, kind of our guide was making sure we were all together, and one of the roaming hordes came by and Marzipan was in that horde. He came running up to me and started asking for candy and asked, "Do you have any marzipan?" And it threw me off. I was not expecting that, and so I remembered him from then on, and every other time I saw him during the event I would yell marzipan and he would come over and interact with me and we'd joke, and so he's in a bunch of my videos from that year. And the highlight was that the last night of Halloween Horror Nights, which happened to be Halloween that year, I found marzipan and I brought it to him. So I'll go ahead and insert that clip now because it's one of my favorite experiences I've ever had at Halloween Horror Nights, was giving him the marzipan. I still call him Marzipan when I see him, and I think he's back this year. He took last year off, but I think he's back this year, so I hope so. I have a treat. It's marzipan. Ah! Ah! Just for you.
Thank you, lady.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yay, just for you. So then the second person that I want to talk about is my favorite Scarecrow, and I met him in 2014 in the Faceoff scare zone. And this is another scare zone that I just like to camp out in. It was the same setup as 7 from years before, where there were platforms with actors on it and then minions on the ground scaring people. And one of the nights early in the event, I started watching the Scarecrows and I thought they were hysterical. I thought all of them were doing a really great job scaring people, so I just kept coming back and watching them. And there were 2 Scarecrows in particular who worked really well together and just really enjoyed them, and no matter how many times I came to the zone, they still came back and tried to scare me, which I always appreciate. So at the very end of the event, on the last night, my favorite Scarecrow came over and had a little conversation with me and just kind of asked what my deal was, if I worked there, why was I here all the time, basically. And in the process we became friends, and we became Facebook friends, and now we're real life friends, and had a great time revisiting him last year. He was still in Scare Zones last year. He had a chainsaw. It was even more fun. I didn't even know that was possible, but it was. And I am very happy to say that he is back again this year, and he's back in a Scare Zone, so I know it's going to be really fun to watch him.
It's permanently normal.
Normal!
And I want to do a small honorable mention to Dr. Frankenstein from last year. Had so much fun interacting with him over and over in his Scare Zone, and sadly I'm not friends with him, so I don't know if he's back this year. Maybe I'll recognize him or he'll recognize me and we'll get to interact some more. Who knows? Number 8. What Scareactor role would you want to play? This one is easy. I would love to be a traditional, from the traditional roaming horde in 2012. I think just get to be mischievous. They get to talk so they could have actual banter with the guests. And I think it'd be fun just to kind of improv, and I have the right height for it because I'm only 5'4", so it would have fit in well, I think. And I was gonna do a follow-up to that, but I know it's a question later on, so just keep in mind that I was gonna say something more and you'll understand later. Number 9, what is your favorite drink or snack at Halloween Horror Nights? And why put the or in there? Let's just talk about both. If you follow my channel, if you've been around for the Halloween Horror Nights vlogs, then you probably know what our drink of choice is. And that is the Peach Long Island from Finnegan's. An important thing to know about Halloween Horror Nights is that there are drink places everywhere. This is an alcohol-heavy event. There are drunks everywhere. My group, we like to drink responsibly, so we are fun drunks, but we don't get to that other side that some people do at Horror Nights. We are also pros at the event, and as such, sometimes we don't need liquid courage. We need liquid help to knock down our senses, because we're so good at this event. We've been so many times that if we go through sober after the first night, it's hard to get us scared. That's pretty much why we do the Peach Long Islands at the beginning of every night, is just kind of help knock down our senses so that we have a little more of a fun time going through the houses and a better chance of getting scared, because otherwise we're just, I don't want to brag, but I'm kind of, it's a humble brag for sure. We're just a little too pro at the event. My favorite pick is the Twisted Tater. It's basically just a potato that they spiralize and then they fry it. It basically comes chips on a stick, and you can pick whatever flavor you want, and I highly recommend the salt and vinegar. Number 10, what is your legion? This is the one I was saying was a follow-up to the traditionals. I am a Morphin, and if you're not involved with Halloween Horror Nights, and you probably don't know about this, but 2013 and 2012, they did the Legions of Horror, and it was kind of like getting sorted into your Harry Potter house, where you get to pick a legion. I think there were 6 of Halloween Horror Nights, and there were little personality traits of each one, and then there were games, and so we were all competing against each other to try to kind of win the house cup, but of Halloween Horror Nights. And so I am a Morphin, and the Morphins were tied to the traditionals in 2012. So number 11, what is your favorite Halloween Horror Nights memory of all time? Seriously, not this is a question. I could literally make an entire series of videos answering this question, because like I said earlier, I've been going to this event for 13 years. It's going to be my 14th Halloween Horror Nights. I've only missed 2 years since 2001. That was 2002 and 2008. And everyone in the Halloween Horror Nights community, if you would just have a moment of silence with me for the fact that I missed 2008. Okay, everyone out there, you guys understand. It still pains me to this day. I make amazing memories every year, no matter if it pours down rain. Actually, some of the pouring down rain is some of my memories. Opening night 2012, drenched. Another night 2012, almost died by a lightning strike. Like, there are so many memories at Halloween Horror Nights, and I've been there with so many different friends. I went with college friends, I've been with ex-boyfriends. I took Mike for his very first Halloween Horror Nights trip in 2013, which happened to be a YouTube night, so he totally got spoiled with like the VIP treatment right off the bat. So I have all these like wonderful experiences from every single year I've gone. To encompass everything that I've experienced at Halloween Horror Nights, I just have to say that my favorite all-time memory is the friendships that I've made through this event. I don't know how many people realize that the majority of my friend group from Orlando, and pretty much everyone that has been featured in these vlogs over time, have been people that I've met through Halloween Horror Nights. You got Michael, Brandon, Ron, Maddie, Brittany, Kyle, even Jordan, because through Brittany, Gwen, there's so many people that have been in my vlogs that came from that community. I wouldn't have had friends when I moved to Orlando if I hadn't been for Halloween Horror Nights, and that friend group has only grown in those years since. I'm extremely grateful for the community because it gave me a friend base when I moved to Florida in 2012, where my roommate, the roommate that I moved to Florida and lived with, I had met through Halloween Horror Nights. So I know a lot of people that watch my videos are Disney people at this point, and you probably have not even made it this far if you're a Disney person, because you're probably like, what is this Halloween Horror Nights stuff? I don't know. But if you have, you know, there's a big Disney community, and I do have a group of friends in the Disney community now that have kind of sprung up in the past year. But there's a big Halloween Horror Nights community too, and it's a very tight-knit group, and we all kind of know each other. We all go to the event every single year. We see each other in the fog, and we kind of wave because we all know the fellow fanatics, and I love that. I love the people I've met. I love meeting new people like Horror Nights boyfriend and my favorite Scarecrow and Marzipan, who make returning to the event every year fun, because I never know who I'm going to see in the fog and who's going to know my name and who's going to scare me and what new scare actor I'm going to become friends with every year. So that is why Halloween Horror Nights is my favorite event. I love the adrenaline too. I love the scenery. No one does it like Halloween Horror Nights. But the community is what has made me fall in love with it so much. So that is my Halloween Horror Nights tag. That is it. It is done. And this time, I am actually going to tag some people, because I have a feeling I know a few people who will actually do this. And I am going to tag ZChris. I'm going to tag View from the Cheap Seats. I know you guys are busy, but if you find some extra time, I think you'd have some great answers for this. I'm going to tag the Ashley Seeker. Is it just Ashley Seeker? Whatever it is, Ashley, I watch your channel all the time and I don't know your channel name, I'm sorry. And then I am going to tag Brady, who's that pop punk kid on Twitter. It's like, I think Around Orlando Vlogs is your channel. I think you love Halloween Horror Nights too, so I'd love to hear your answers. So I'm gonna tag you 4, and everyone else that I think would do this is already at Halloween Horror Nights or is way too busy this month to possibly do this. However, if you want to do it, surprise me, and I'd love to see more people doing this tag and kind of spreading the Halloween Horror Nights love through October. So, and if you aren't already subscribed, make sure you click that button down below so that you don't miss any of the Halloween Horror Nights fun through October. And then after that, I go back to my normal videos, which are typically Disney, Universal, or other theme park coverage, and then my life. So that's gonna be it for tonight, but I'll see you guys again soon at Horror Nights. Bye. So what I haven't talked about yet is that we watched Krampus last night as part of our homework for Horror Nights, and we loved it. It was amazing, right?
That's the most contribution you got now.
Oh, come on. No.
It's a nod.
The nod, that's all it gets
Like
me.
a grunt.